Hi, this is Adam Eliel Berkowitz from Israel 365 News. I'm here once again with my dear friend Jim Barfield, the head of the Copper Scroll Project. And we're here talking about a very important subject about how American intervention in Israeli politics is preventing the Third Temple from being built. So, Jim, we spoke a week ago. Let me just pull up the article. We spoke a week ago about how the U.S. State Department, they handed over an artifact, a spoon that's 2,700 years old. They handed it over, and in their words, they returned it to the Palestinian Authority. The spoon was 2,700 years old, and it was sold on the archeological black market, and it was bought by Michael Steinhardt, and there were a whole bunch of artifacts that were 180 artifacts that were illegally looted and purchased by Michael Steinhardt. The artifacts totaled a worth of $70 million. They were seized in 2021, and the district attorney made a deal with Michael Steinhardt and said, okay, return it to the rightful owners and we'll give you a pass. Well, in this case, the U.S. State Department decided that the rightful owner of a spoon from the temple era that was found in the region of Judea rightfully belonged to the Palestinian Authority. This was the first time that this had ever been done. That means that there is now a policy that any archaeology that is found outside of the 1967 borders of Israel will belong to the Palestinian Authority, which did not exist in 1967. So if this is a precedent and this is what we can expect in the future, there's a problem. The reason why I'm speaking to my friend Jim is he developed what's called the Copper Scroll Project, where he deciphered a copper scroll, which was discovered in the area of the Dead Sea around Qumran before 1967. And it's now in a museum in Amman, Jordan. And it's basically a shopping list for gold and silver and other artifacts from the Jewish temple in Jerusalem that were hidden around the area of Qumran. So if the U.S. State Department now has a policy that any artifacts found outside of the 1967 borders go to the Palestinian Authority for some inexplicable reason, then that means that any temple artifacts, Jewish temple artifacts that are found will also go to the Palestinian Authority. So, Jim, I don't think people understand. This is a very important point. You tried to conduct archaeology. You did a little bit of exploration in the area of Qumran. Now, there is an Israel Antiquities Authority that deals with archaeology in a normal way. It's an Israeli ministry. If you find something, it belongs to Israel. It's part of our national heritage. And it goes to the Israel Antiquities Authority, and they handle it in the proper manner, usually giving it to archaeologists, putting it in a museum. And normally I would think that if you were looking for these temple artifacts in the area of Qumran, it would be like full steam ahead. Let's find them for the nation of Israel, since that's our national heritage. But that's not the case, because the area of Qumran is not under the Israel Antiquities Authority. Could you tell me about that? If I wanted to dig up gold and silver temple artifacts, anything having to do with the temple in the area of Qumran, what's the procedure?
The common procedure is you have to go through, you have to get the permits, and it's kind of a long drawn out and a huge paperwork
From the
uh,
Israel Antiquities Authority?
from well, not just the Israel Antiquities
Oh,
Authority. It begins there, but you have to understand it goes through the Antiquities Department of the Civil Administration, which is a military operation. There's nothing civil about it. It's a military operation,
it's
and
known by
it's
the acronym COGAT, COGAT, and it is the
yeah,
IDF. It is
the
the IDF.
ADCA. That's the problem here. You've got several different hoops to jump through in order to just get permission to begin to operate and dig. For example, whenever Yuval Peleg initiated the paperwork, he had to go through one place where we believe there is a cave buried, a very, very important cave. He had to get permission through the National Parks Authority for the over the what is commonly called the West Bank. We call Judea Samaria. That it had to go through them to get that permission. Then he had to go through the ADCA, which was his department. He was the head archaeologist over Qumran, but he still had to get permission to operate and dig there, which means that you've got several different layers of authority before you were able to do an excavation, which in this case was kind of good because we're protecting and trying to keep these items from going into the wrong hands. But the more that the United States today gets involved in this, the more they muddy the water, the more difficult it's going to become, the more murky it's going to become. And that could bring up question. And as far as these items that we're looking for, the Copper Scroll items, those are purely 1000% Jewish items, and they must not go anywhere else except to the people of Israel.
There's a piece of archaeology. I believe it's the tablet from the Shiloach, from the Siloam pool. I believe it's an inscription, and it's in Turkey, and it's from the temple. It's an inscription. It's hugely important, and Turkey doesn't want to give it back. People, there was actually, even I remember a couple years ago, there was supposed to be a deal with an American museum that wanted to borrow some of the, or exhibit some of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And just as they were about to receive them, they got a normal agreement, which was, when you're finished with the exhibit, give it back. And they refused to sign, because it was their intent to get the Dead Sea Scrolls and then give them to the Palestinian Authority. It sounds absurd, but there's even what they call the sifting project, which is Dr. Gabriel Barkai. God bless him. He's a pip. He's an amazing guy. But the what's called Solomon Stables, which was not a stable, it's a cavernous hall. It's under the plaza of the Temple Mount. It's an empty space, and there was some talk of maybe building a synagogue there. So the Waqif went in with big equipment. This is under the Temple Mount. They went in with caterpillars, big equipment. They dug it up with big tractors and dumped all the dirt into a dumping ground outside of Jerusalem. And they built the Marwani Mosque, which is never used. It has room for 10,000 people. It's a finished hall, and it is never used. They just don't want us to use it. But even worse, Dr. Barkai, he got together what he called the Sifting Project, where volunteers show up. It's actually a lovely day off to go there and just sift through this dirt that's been carted away from the Temple Mount. And they've found, it's like every spoonful has artifacts in it. It's astonishing how much they've dug up. And I remember once I was talking with a reporter from National Geographic, who was the archaeology reporter, and he said, we have no proof that there were Jewish temples. And this
Oh my
is
God.
an archaeologist. I was stunned. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, there's never been any archaeology done, which
Oh my.
A, is not accurate. And B, what he means is, well, we can't dig there because the Waqf, the Palestinians, will not allow it. And the problem is that they really do whatever they want up there. They dig, they take up heavy equipment. There was a tunnel that started to collapse, and they filled it in with concrete. We know that there are tunnels up there because the priests used them. The Kohanim used those tunnels. So something like your archaeology, which would be in Qumran, we can't touch it. We can't touch it. We can't. I'm
We
sorry?
can touch. We can touch it, but it takes some chutzpah. It's going to take someone with the guts to stand up and say, enough of this nonsense, because that's one of the things that I've learned about the Palestinians. If you got the chutzpah, if you got the guts to get up and stand up to them, they say, okay, finally, someone has got the manhood to stand up to this nonsense.
That's
That's
it.
what it's
If
going to
someone's
take.
got the cojones, if someone's
There
got...
you go. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I learned that from a nice guy by the name of Moshe Feiglin.
there
Stand
you
up
go.
for. That's where I learned it, and I absolutely believe that's true. And I've heard that from him.
And he was a member of Knesset. Unfortunately, he's not in the Knesset anymore. But Moshe
Right.
Feiglin, he's smart. Oh my gosh, is that man smart?
He
Every
is.
time I talk to him, I learn something. And he also they have a wonderful expression in Hebrew in Israel. He doesn't see anyone from a meter away, meaning meaning he doesn't care. He does the right thing. He does what's in his head, and he just
Thank
keeps
you.
going forward. So
That's what it's going to take. And that's what it's going to take for Israel to gain control of the Area C fully and completely, not just partially and by name, but
Area C
fully and
was supposed to be
completely.
for us anyway, according to the Oslo Accords.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
And that's where Qumran is at. That's where all these items I'm
oh,
telling you about, that's where all of it's at, is in Area C. I don't know about this spoon that you're talking about, where exactly they found it. I
that
think
was
I know
also,
what
wait,
you're talking about.
I believe I wrote. Let me just double check. It says that it was found around Hebron. Um, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But
Well, that makes all the difference.
it doesn't.
It still belongs to Israel,
Right.
period. But that silly agreement of Area A, B, and C,
Which the
then
Palestinian Authority has already reneged on and said we are no longer part of the Oslo Accords.
there you
They've
go.
backed out of it vocally many times.
Okay.
So it
Then
shouldn't
let's
be binding.
take it all back and let's start all over again.
It's funny, in your background is the tabernacle,
Mm-hmm.
and that's in Shiloh. And
Mm-hmm.
or it stood in Shiloh for about 400 years. And I have a very dear friend, Dr. Scott Stripling, who's an
Mm-hmm.
archaeologist. He's been digging in Israel for, I think, almost 3 decades. And he's the head of the dig at Shiloh. And he has found the horns of a stone altar. He's found pomegranates, which were only used in artwork for the temple service.
Right.
He has found absolute proof that the tabernacle stood there, but it's in Samaria. It's an area where the Palestinians are building and saying it's ours. We'll have to give back the tabernacle. Any remains we have of the tabernacle. It's
It's insane.
it's
It's utterly insane.
it's hidden behind smoke screens. What people don't understand is, first of all, when people talk about the West Bank, I hate that term because what is the West
Exactly.
Bank? The West Bank was illegally occupied by Jordan until 1967. From 1948 to 1967, it was illegally occupied by Jordan. It was the West Bank of Jordan. Okay. The real, and even worse, is occupied territories, because that's just a lie. They're not occupied. They're currently, their status, at the worst, you could say, they're disputed territories. It's Judea and Samaria. But by saying West Bank, by saying occupied territories, you're hiding it. Another way of hiding it is when they use the term East Jerusalem. Jerusalem is one city. Why do they say East Jerusalem? Because what they're actually saying is every single part of Jerusalem that is holy to the Jews, that's East Jerusalem. If we relinquish East Jerusalem, we'll be losing the Western Wall. We'll be losing the Siloam Pool, which actually until early 1900s was a Yemenite village, a Jewish Yemenite village. Everything that they call Silwan was owned by Yemenite Jews. We'll be losing the Temple Mount and everything under it, meaning there's so many artifacts there. You found you found possible sites of temple artifacts in Qumran, which is Area C. But if we give up the Temple Mount, we give up our temple, which should be a house of prayer for all nations, and everything underneath it. The Temple Mount, when you're standing at the Kotel, you're standing at the Western Wall, behind that wall are tunnels like you wouldn't believe. My dear friend Harry Moskowitz, he wrote the Ark Report. According to Jewish tradition, we know exactly where the Ark of the Covenant is. We know exactly where it is, and we can't go there. We have a Jewish tradition, it's very clearly written, that it is precisely in the location of the Holy Holies, but about 10 meters down, directly down. There was a special chamber built for it, and even before the destruction of the temple, it was placed there. And that'll be out of our hands. We will never get another chance to go anywhere near the Ark of the Covenant. We will never get another chance to find everything. I mean, the Temple Mount was not only the place for the temple service, it was the storehouse. Qumran, I mean, the temple was a huge business. That's what you found. Qumran, they're just storing stuff. They don't have enough room to keep it all.
And you brought up the point, how is the United States interfering in the rebuilding of the dead? This is it. It is none of our business what you do in your land. Matter of fact, we should be defending you and owning every single inch of Israel. And you set the parameters. Biblically, they're set. And it's none of our business, and we need to stay out of it. And this administration that's in there now, and I hesitate to call him a president, he needs to stay out of everything, especially the United States business. He needs to get out of there and go back to wherever he's from, because I'm telling you, whatever lies we continue to believe, that's where we're going to be stuck with. And it needs to stop. And the lies are just flowing like water from Washington, D.C. And it's beginning to turn, but it's very, very slowly. And we need to get out of the business of interfering in your country's business. And we should be backing you every step of the way for you owning that property. Period.
And I hate to say it, Jim, you're a brother. You are my brother in every way. I was born Jewish. You didn't happen to be born Jewish. Okay.
Right.
But we are brothers in everything. And we are especially brothers in this journey to redemption, in this journey towards creating a house of prayer for all nations, in this journey towards doing God's will. I hate to say this. Anthony Blinken was just in Israel last week. Okay. The state, he stood there in front of Netanyahu, and he was talking about the Temple Mount, and he called it Haram HaSharif. He's Jewish. He was born Jewish. And he's referring to the Temple Mount with its Arabic name, which is not a name, but
No.
he called it in, you know, okay, if you want to use the Arabic term for political purposes, fine, but you should be equal. He's a Jew. He should be able to pronounce Har Habayit. He should, but no UN, EU, or US reference to the Temple Mount has ever said Har Habayit. It's just like the Jewish connection. The UN, UNESCO, has already said that there is no connection between Jews and Jerusalem, Jews and the Temple Mount, Jews in Hebron, Jews and the tomb of Rachel. They're erasing the Bible. They're erasing the Bible, and they're rewriting it in Arabic. And that's the unacceptable part of it.
There's a lot of unacceptable stuff happening. Let me give you one from an outsider's view. You know, I hear these words and I believe them with all my heart. Never again. Never again. Yet here recently, from everything I've seen, rabbis are allowing and telling people to inject yourself with these injections that are as unclean as it can possibly get. And how can this be allowed? Where are our rabbis standing up saying, no? Are you insane? Torah says, no, don't do this. Well, it's the same thing with the Temple Mount. It's the same thing with these occupied territories. No, this is Israel. It belongs to Israel. And if everybody else could just kiss my brown butt, it doesn't belong to anybody but Israel. For God's sakes, how hard is that to understand?
Well, you know, Jim, it all starts in Israel. What is idolatry? Idolatry is I've walked up to you with this little carved piece of stone and I say, you see this? This created the world. And you're like, I can believe that. I can believe that. Hey, there's this nation called Palestinians. They can't even pronounce the word. Palestinians can't say the letter P. They can only say B. So they pronounce it Palestinians. Okay. And guess what? They've been in Israel. They've been in this piece of land for 10,000 years. Oh, really? Well, what about the Bible? Oh, no. It is a Palestinian policy to say that Jesus was a Palestinian and that they take the whole concept of dying for our sins and say, oh, he's Shahid. He was the first Palestinian martyr.
Oh my gosh.
He is on the same level as suicide bombers who blow up buses.
Oh my gosh.
It's straight up Palestinian policy. If they get you to believe that, then they'll get you to believe that if you put a piece of cloth on your face, that you're saving the world. They can get you to believe anything. That's the agenda. Get you to worship idols, get you to reject the Bible or to rewrite it, get you to rewrite every history book that's ever been written, every Bible that's ever been written. I don't care if you're Jewish or Christian. Get you to believe that Jesus was wearing an explosive vest and wanted to murder children. If they get you to believe that, they can get you to believe anything.
And the way they do that is tell you how cool you are.
Yes.
If you believe these things, you are not modern. You're not hip. You're not with
righteous.
it. If you don't,
you're righteous. You're so
in their little world.
Yes.
It's sickening.
And you see that person over there with a beard and a deep voice and a big Adam's apple. Well, that's a beautiful woman. It's all about false belief.
It is. It is. We're in the world of Everything is becoming a lie, and if you believe the lie, then you believe in their truth and your truth and their truth, and horse baloney. There's only one true and one lie, and men do not have babies. I'm sorry, that's just the way it works.
Hashem echad u'shmo echad. If we have a temple in Jerusalem
Uh-huh.
and the Jews take their place serving the world as a priestly nation, and we become the light unto the nation, the light that will dispel the darkness and the lies, not as like leaders controlling the world, which is what Rashida Tlaib said, but if we just have a temple in Jerusalem, just like the Bible said 5,000 years ago, King David bought it, okay, and it's the truth that's been guiding the world since then. If we can reestablish this temple and line up all the ducks in the right places, then none of these lies can stand anymore. They'll all disappear. But there are people who hate Jews, hate the God of the Jews so much that they would rather take the lies even further, so long as there is not that temple. Because as soon as there's the temple, how can you have a temple in Jerusalem and still be a horrible person? Mm-hmm. You can't be. Mm-hmm. You can't have a temple in Jerusalem and then lie to someone and then show up at the temple, on Sukkot, on the Feast of the Tabernacles. You go to the Feast of the Tabernacles and like, hey, haven't seen you since last Sukkot. What have you been up to? Well, I've been selling this horrible poison that's called the vaccine to people all over the world. Oh, really? You want to go bring a sacrifice now? Sure. You can't do that. The lies just won't stand.
That's where we're at. We're in this weird, bizarro world where everybody believes up is down and down is up, and then you're the coolest person in the world if you believe that. And it's scary.
So what I wanted to talk about, and the reason why we're bringing the subject up again, and we're going to get to the news at the end, is that there's actually a heritage ministry in the Israeli government, and the minister is named Amichai Eliyahu, and he is now bringing a lawsuit against the U.S. State Department for this spoon that they transferred to the Palestinian Authority. He's saying it's illegal that you did that. You gave away Israeli property to a non-Israeli entity. Okay. And so now comes the legal battle. Now we're going to see whether Israel can actually win in a court against America, and whether the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian Authority has tried to sue Israel so many times, and I just, sometimes I wonder, how much can the court lie to itself? That's the problem. How much can the court lie to itself? If we bring the proof, look, you found this, it's Area C, it's Israel, right. There is no Palestinian Authority. Even if you want to say before 1967, that was Jordan. There was no Palestinian Authority. How far are they willing to take this lie? How far are they going to lie about idolatry? How far are they going to take it?
As far as you let them.
As far as
I'm telling you that it's up to the people of Israel to stand up and deal. Their politicians are not going to do it. They're in it for the money. If it's anything like the American politicians, they're in it for themselves. Period.
Israel is a little bit better than America. It's one of the reasons why woke never caught on in Israel. I remember when I first got here, I got here in 91, just before the Oslo Accords, and there was a strong peace movement. The left wing was peace, land for peace. And that lasts until about the 10th rocket from Gaza landing in your neighborhood. After that, you're not going to be left wing anymore. We're a little bit closer to the bone. We don't have as much time for, you can have a guy, he puts on a dress like Klinger in the TV series MASH,
Right.
and he'll be like, I'm a woman. And then he'll show up at the army and he'll be like, I'm a woman. I'm not going to go to work. And they're like, dude, I don't care. We need you on the gun. Sit down in the Jeep. Let's get going. Okay, wear your dress. We don't care, but we need you on the gun.
That's it. Period. I agree.
We are a little bit closer to the bone. And also we're dealing with much bigger stakes. I mean, we're talking about a 2,700-year-old artifact. We're talking about the Temple Mount. The question is, the Israeli politicians, there are crooked politicians and corrupt politicians, but pardon me, but there's a limit. There's a limit. First of all, there's a limit to how much money we're dealing with. Second of all, Israel's not that big. If you're a crooked politician, you're going to be going to the same supermarket as me. And if I see you in the frozen foods aisle, I might not take it so kindly. So,
well, it amazes me, Adam, that there's so many hands in the pie in Israel, and take a look at a map. You just have to step back just a little bit and look at a map of Israel and look how fragmented it is.
Yeah,
you got area A, area B, area C, all in what they call the West Bank.
Yeah,
and then you got Gaza over here. You've got a little tiny strip left in the middle that's called Israel. It's craziness.
People don't understand it when they talk about Israeli politics and the land for peace area A, B, C. They don't understand. I mean, it always blew me away when you get directions in Israel. It's kind of like, okay, you go down the road till you see, there's this rock that looks like your cousin, and then you make a left. But if you make a right, there's a really great pita falafel store right there, and I got the recipe. But no, you don't make the right, you make the left, and then that's where my cousin lives, my cousin, and then that's how you get directions in Israel. And when you're talking about area A, B, and C, we're talking about really small parcels of land.
Yes.
And they'll eat you away, but these are significant. They're firing rockets at us from Gaza. They can almost reach the entire country with rockets that they built in their kitchen. Hezbollah can reach all of Israel with their rockets. We can get hit by rockets from Iran, which is 2 countries over.
Right.
If we give up Judea and Samaria, we'll have rockets just a couple miles, almost eyesight to the airport. Every plane that'll be taken off can be taken down by a shoulder-held anti-air rocket. Every plane from Ben Gurion International Airport, and they'll do it. They've tried. So you're right. We're talking small parcels of land. So,
and incredibly fragmented.
Yeah.
And I drive through the West Bank a lot, going from wherever I might be staying to Qumran, because I go there, every possible chance I get while I'm in Israel. And it's so fragmented and so, and make the wrong turn and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're in deep trouble. The big sign saying you're going to get killed if you get into the wrong area.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke.
That's the apartheid in Israel. Palestinians, they can come in to work if they get a work permit. Okay. Even from Gaza, they can come in if they get a work permit. And the work permit is just, we don't think you're going to kill us this time. They can't stay overnight, because if they stay overnight, that's a big problem. But Jews, if we step foot into the Palestinian territories that are just being watched over by the Palestinians, we'll get killed by weapons that they're not supposed to have. That's the real apartheid. So yeah. Anyway, so this is all And that's another lie. So the war is really truth against lies, and it starts in Israel and it goes to America. You know,
Mhm.
we started having suicide bombings, and then 911 happened in America. Okay, we had problems on our southern border, and the left wing was like, "Oh no, the poor Gazans." Meanwhile, the Gazans are saying, "We want to come in so we can kill the Jews," and the left wing is saying, "Oh, just let them in." You know? And then America had problem on its southern border. Everything starts in Israel. And I hate to say it, but even the shots started in Israel.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And that's what's so surprising to me is how it was allowed by the rabbis to get past them and them not standing up in unison at the Capitol of in Jerusalem saying, no, 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 this is contaminated with aborted fetal tissue. I don't care. Throw whatever concoction in that witch's brew that they put together. It's still unkosher.
I'll let you in on a shameful secret we have. My rabbi told me this, oddly enough, ironically enough, that when push comes to shove, when times get rough, it's not the rabbis who stand up. It's not the rabbis who do the right thing, tell us to do the right thing. The rabbis are not leading the Jews back to Israel. The rabbis are staying where they have a job.
There you go.
I mean, I remember when I was in yeshiva, I was learning with guys who were learning to go back to America to be rabbis. And I was the cook, but I was also learning to be a rabbi. And I
Mhm.
would go down every morning to go food shopping for the yeshiva because it was a small yeshiva. And I would go into the store, and the guy who owned the store was sitting there learning like so much better than what we did in yeshiva. He was a store owner, he was a shop owner. If you come to
Mhm.
Israel, what's a rabbi? Rabbi, and especially what's a rabbi in America? Well, he's teaching a lie. The rabbis are telling us, it's amazing. The rabbis are telling us not to go up to the Temple Mount, which is
Mhm.
it's embarrassing. But if you go up there, you'll only see ultra Orthodox Jews. You'll mostly see ultra Orthodox Jews whose rabbis
Right.
told them not to go up,
Mhm.
because we know that it's not the rabbis who are going to to lead us to victory. It's not the rabbis who are going to lead us to the truth. It's the nation of Israel. We received the Torah as a nation.
Mhm.
I don't believe in the rabbis. Rabbi is a term that was made up in the exile. It was a
Mhm.
job in the exile.
Mhm.
But when we got the Torah, we were standing at Mount Sinai, all of us.
Mhm.
I believe in the nation of Israel. I do not believe in the rabbis.
Thank you so much. That is good to hear because that's where we are standing now. We're
Yeah,
going to the people. We're going to go to the people. We're
you
going
have
to
to.
tell
You're
the
right.
people, listen, this is yours. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not. It belongs to you. It belongs to the nation of Israel. These items I'm looking for, these other items that the archaeologists are digging up, it belongs to you and to the people of Israel. And then by a long story in the midst, it will belong to us as the nations of the world, but it still is under the control and under the authority of Judah and the Levites and the Kohanim. Those are the ones where we have got to put our faith in as men that are going to stand up and do what's right, no matter what it takes.
So
And
Jim,
I'm with you.
so Jim, we're going to get together 5,000, 50,000, I don't know how many thousand dudes. I don't care, Jew, non-Jew, guys who know the truth, who want the truth, who have no patience for lies anymore. We're going to get behind you. You're going to have the map. You're going to have the metal detector. We're each going to bring a shovel. We're going to go up to Qumran. The front guard is going to stand at the front gate. No, no. And then the rabbi's going to be sitting there. No, no. And the politicians are going to be sitting there. No, no. And you, me, and the other 50,000 dudes are going to be like, heck yes, here we come. And we're going to dig it up. We're going to take it to the temple and we're going to have a party.
And I mark my words, watch the guards that are at Qumran. They're going to be leading the charge right with us because they know
Yes.
that this belongs to Israel. I've seen it. I've seen them do it.
People don't realize the holiest guys are the guards, the policemen on the Temple Mount. And there was this guy, the police chief, the former police chief in charge of the Temple Mount. His name was Yoram Halevi. Okay, first of all, he was a Levi. He was a Levite. His job, his ancestral inheritance was to protect the Temple Mount. Okay, I read the guy's bio. He has killed more terrorists than you or I could ever imagine. He's like, he was on every unit that, it's like whenever there was an emergency, they're like, send him in. Okay. And he would come in and, he would leave and there wouldn't be any terrorists left in sight. I met the guy. First of all, he's about yay tall. Okay. Not a big guy. Second of all, never stops smiling. He is always with a smile on his face. And I asked him,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I asked him, I said, you're a Levi. He's like, yeah. I'm like, and you're in charge of the Temple Mount. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you think about the fact that you're a Levi when you're up there? He's like, no comment, but yeah.
Good friend.
And these guys, and I've spoken to some of the policemen up there. First of all, I know a guy who quit because he just couldn't stand anymore that we weren't being allowed to go to the Temple Mount in fullness. And he's now just a regular security guard. But these guys are holy. They are, you want to talk about a thin blue line. Those guys are the thin blue line stopping all the haters in the world, all the Amalekites, all the Nazis. They're the thin blue line stopping them from taking over the holiest place in the world. And a lot of those policemen are Druze. And
really?
the Druze have a tradition that they are the sons of Jericho, which means that they are part of us. You ask any Druze, are you the sons of Jericho? And he'll tell you yes. Okay.
Wow.
This is biblical. This is biblical.
Oh yeah.
And it's happening.
Let me ask you something. Did you know that we've got a Cohen that has joined our ranks just recently?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, we have a Cohen who is part of the project now. He came on board with us out at Qumran the other day. He and I have been friends. We met through Moshe Feiglin. He was the #1 guy in the United States for Feiglin's crew. He and I became buddies over the internet, and he agreed to meet me in Israel his last trip and go out to Qumran with me. And he is on board with us. And I talk to him and I give him, ideas where we're coming from, and he gives me ideas where we should go. And he's actually brought up the gentleman you were just speaking about at the Heritage Foundation of Israel. And we're going to try to get in touch with him and say, listen, we've got this. There's a picture of me standing with my arms crossed in a red shirt saying, Israel, I'm waiting on you. In other words, let's go get this stuff and let's get it over with. We're tired of waiting. We're going to do everything properly by the book, but I got us a Cohen on board with us for guidance and for some input. But I did that on purpose, and I selected him from one of Moshe Feiglin's people. So yes, we do have a Cohen on board.
It's funny. You mentioned Amichai Eliyahu, that he's the minister of the Heritage Ministry. He's in charge of it. And it's funny, when I was writing the story about him bringing a lawsuit against the U.S. State Department, every single news service described him as a right-wing extremist. I've never heard them refer to a left-wing extremist.
No, of course not.
always left of center, but it's always anyone who is right-wing extremist. And you know something, man, it's the crazies that are going to fix the world. It's the crazies who are going to say, look, dude, I may be a little bit weird, but I know a lie when I smell it. Okay, so get out of my face. I'm not going to let you get away with this. And that's this guy, Amichai Eliyahu. You know,
that's what I like. Someone that's got some chutzpah, somebody that's ready to stand up. It's not true, so let's fix this. Yeah. And that's the kind of guys I love.
Yep. I mean, you have an Israeli minister bringing a lawsuit against the U.S. State Department. Yes.
Yeah, that's what has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, Jim, the problem is you and I can always talk about coming redemption with no end. It's just like, because for us, it's like, oh, it's right over there. It looks like this. Yeah.
It's here. It's here. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
So
God.
Adam, I always love it when you invite me on, and I'm always there for you whenever you're ready to. You want to go to battle? Give me a call. I'll be in Israel the next day.
Amen. 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 We're gonna get the guys together. We know who they are.
Yes, we do.
And no one's going to be able to stand in their way. That's for sure. Thank God. Okay, Jim. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Be blessed.
Absolutely, my pleasure.